Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeannette Wierzbicki. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio Mideastern Governments Association. And we have a pretty exciting session today on construction and technology. And I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Stephen Zubyk with the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments, who will be talking about the Youngstown Smart 2 Network. Let's give a warm welcome to Stephen.
Okay, just to get started, we really wouldn't be anywhere with our project today without recognizing our partners. This goes back 4 or 5 years ago, and really the partners listed on the screen plus countless others. It took a buy-in from the locals, the local community, business leaders, government officials. Really needed that support to get things started and get where we are today and make this transformational project a reality. To jump right into the project, this is the Youngstown Smart 2 Network project. Total project cost is nearly $28 million, and even higher than that when we start to get into projects that kind of rolled out from it. The first one at the top there, the build grant funding, nearly $11 million there. What the build grant is, that's a US DOT program. Build stands for Better Utilizing Infrastructure to Leverage Development. And we really took that to heart and showed that we took this initial investment and took our initial ideas from our locals and really leveraged it to a collection of projects and showing off what we've done today. Point out also at the bottom, the final piece really of our puzzle was the ARC power funding. This allowed us to add conduit to implement broadband into the project, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. So again, this is really what the Smart 2 acronym stands for. Really for me, I take it as a multimodal safety initiative. We focused on the downtown Youngstown area and wanted to find ways to get people from point A to point B from any mode of transportation, whether it's by vehicle, through transit, biking, or as a pedestrian, and allowing them to do this as safe as possible. And I mentioned before that this really started 4 or 5 years ago as an idea and how we can get this accomplished. And it's showing that it's even longer window than that. We began design back in 2019, awarded the first phase of our project, which I'll touch on the next slide, in 2020, and began construction on that phase also in the summer of 2020. We're doing construction along 7 downtown streets, so it's a multi-year process, still allowing access for bikes, pedestrians, and vehicles to travel downtown. So we don't anticipate construction finishing up until sometime in the end of 2022. So here's an overview of downtown Youngstown, and the yellow lines are where our project touches. Fifth Avenue in the center there, that's our first phase of the project, and that's what I referenced that started construction last summer. You'll see some renderings on the next couple slides. What we did here is Fifth Avenue is a wide stretch of road. We get sections that are 5 and 6 lanes, and it really gets dangerous going through. You see there in the middle, YSU campus, Youngstown State University. We get a lot of pedestrians crossing the street, and it's a really wide distance to cross. And now with our numbers in Youngstown, the traffic demand doesn't really require 5 or 6 lanes. So the rendering you see here is Fifth Avenue, is right outside the campus and outside the football stadium. Shows what we've done and what we're planning to do all throughout the project. The main aspect is the road diet that we see. You only notice here 2-3 lanes in some sections. So bringing those curb lines in makes it safer for all modes of travel. Makes it safer for the vehicles. Makes it safer for transit, and most importantly, makes it safer for pedestrians. You can see on the corners, It really shortens the crosswalk distance, and you'll see it even better in the next couple pictures. So this got sideways on us, but if this was prior to construction beginning on Fifth Avenue. So if you can see, really wide lanes, 5, 6 lanes, and really difficult for pedestrians to cross. But then you see here, this is what's been done along Fifth Avenue, and you can really see that this shortens that distance by only being 1 lane in either direction, and bringing those corners in really shortens the distance and reduces the delay time then too. Makes it quicker for everyone to cross and makes it safer. So back to the map to talk about the second phase, which should kick off construction anytime now, is the other 6 streets that are labeled here. Park Avenue up by Mercy Health, the hospital in the area, and then the other 6 down in the Central Business District. The whole project, it was a focus on connecting these 3 locations, connecting the hospital to Youngstown State's campus, and getting everyone safe down to the Central Business District, where we have restaurants and entertainment. So the second phase, to show off a couple renderings of what we're anticipating there. This one first is of Federal Street. It's probably the main road in the Central Business District, that's going right down between restaurants, bars, entertainment. So we see a lot of pedestrian travel there. And you can see in the rendering, it's bringing those curb lines in, it's bringing those corners closer, showing those highly reflective crosswalks, making it safer for everybody. And another big one is parking. We have quite an issue downtown with parking. There's not a lack of parking spaces, but it's difficult to find where you can park, where you're allowed to park, really identifying those spots. So our project as a whole is working to identify through strategically placed signage on where you're allowed to park, what times you can park there, and make just a better experience for everyone making their way downtown. So another rendering to talk about here is Front Street, which is another one that you see in the existing picture in the top left, that is currently 4 or 5 lanes. And again, the traffic demand really doesn't require that many lanes for the traffic. So we're bringing this down to 1 lane in either direction, and placing those strategically placed left turn lanes. And you'll also see on the left side there, the green and orange striping as a dedicated bike lane. We've done this in a few locations in our project, and this is one that is important because Front Street connects those 3 areas. I'll go back real quick. It connects those 3 areas on the map really well. You see Front Street down at the bottom of the screen. It connects the Central Business District, connects the entertainment facilities down there, and then works its way up Fifth Avenue to the campus and up to the university. I'd like to point out also, in the very bottom left of this map is another ongoing bike trail project that will connect to the Front Street project and get riders to Mill Creek Metro Parks. So it's connecting all 4 of these facilities and doing it as safe as possible. So one last thing to touch on is just our return on investment. I mentioned previously the 1.4 million in ARC power funds. What this did was allowed us to implement conduit for broadband in the area. We've heard a lot of stories of businesses wanting to come in and individuals wanting to come in, but the internet is not sufficient, or it's not even available. So what this does is it allows us to hit these dark areas, and it creates 119 jobs and retains 93 other jobs. So really important, and it was a perfect last piece to this project that's ever expanding. So that's all I have for you guys today. Apologize for the difficulties with the video. I hope everybody learned something of value and can use it in what you do.
Thank you, Stephen. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. And while we're waiting for that to happen, Stephen, I have to compliment you Build grants are extremely difficult to obtain. They're highly competitive. This is a really great project. I love all the elements that you're incorporating, the complete streets, the road diets, conduit for broadband. What do you think has been the driving force behind the success of getting the build grant?
That's a great compliment and a great question. It was really a difficult path, like you mentioned, multi-year process, and I think the biggest thing to point to is just the buy-in and the partnerships. We had so many important community leaders on board, government officials that everybody saw this as a transformational project, and those partnerships and that initiative really was the driving force, in my opinion.
Sounds good. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. Can you maybe, I guess the one thing that I was thinking that, especially with the conduit for the broadband, are there also plans to have a dedicated route to connect like the medical center and the university and other areas with an autonomous shuttle?
Yeah, so that's a great comment. That's actually the third phase of our project. Didn't touch on it today, but we really wanted to look and how can we implement some advanced technologies in the project. And the third phase, which will come after the construction, so in the calendar year 2023, is the implementation of the autonomous shuttles. If we can pull up the map again real quick. Okay, so yeah, here our intention is to actually have two autonomous shuttles running. First is we have a lot of back and forth between the campus and Mercy Health University up at the north. So running a shuttle up Fifth Avenue, and another one is the football stadium, getting people safe before and after to parking and into the central business district. And then the other one we're talking about having potentially having a loop in the central business district, getting everybody between parking and between restaurants, entertainment centers. We have the Covelli Center down there, newly completed Youngstown Amphitheater. So yeah, thank you for that comment.
Great. I look forward to coming up to Youngstown and seeing the completed project and riding the shuttle. Again, I don't see any questions in the chat, so I would like to introduce our next speaker, Sarah Conley-Ballew with Rural Action. And Sarah's going to be talking about an initiative as to how we can get smart technology and electric vehicles in rural areas. So please join me in welcoming Sarah.
Thanks, Jeannette, and thanks Ohio University, Buena Vista School, my alma mater. It's a great opportunity to be able to join today for the conversation about the future of Appalachian infrastructure. I'll start today just by giving you a quick intro to Rural Action. I serve as the director of our Sustainable Energy Solutions, and Rural Action is a membership-based nonprofit here in Southeast Ohio. Since '91, we've been working with communities to expand upon our region's natural assets. That's including fields and forests, from watersheds to waste. And we've supported the Appalachian entrepreneur and the economic development of our region for a long time. The Sustainable Energy Solutions program picked up this project that we're going to dial into today called Roadmap. So a quick project overview. Roadmap project is a 3-year Department of Energy funded project aimed at addressing the current mobility gaps that plague rural communities. That includes insufficient rural public transit operations, countywide affordable services, including non-emergency medical transportation, the limitations around service providers in that area. rural communities are disproportionately impacted by the gaps in the transportation system. And today it's more important than ever to understand how advanced vehicle technologies can work in these rural areas to address the gaps in transportation services. This is a 3-year project with a budget of $1.7 million. And over that 3-year period, we are planning and developing this project. The 4 pilot demonstrations are being implemented in budget period 2. And in its 3rd year, we're going to be working on disseminating a rural mobility action plan. To give you a little bit of an overview of the project site, this project focuses in on the city of Athens and Greater Athens County to look at different mobility needs, barriers, and opportunities. This region was selected because it really is quite a microcosm of a rural environment. All 4 seasons are represented here. Quite a lot of terrain that tends to, there's paved roads, there's unpaved roads, there's a lot of areas that have, there's a lot of challenges to the rural roadways. And so we're trying to have a representative sample of that within the study scope. And we're also within proximities to some of the leading research teams and facilities offered in the state of Ohio. So that's a real benefit to this project. And really, it's important that this is studied broadly because rural places do comprise almost 20% of the land where U.S. population lives. So we're really trying to look at solutions that can have broad-based impacts around the country. To speak about our project partners and collaborators, we're working with our project team that it consists of Clean Fuels Ohio, which is our state Clean Cities Coalition partner, the Transportation Research Center, Hocking-Athens Perry Community Action Agency, and the Ohio Department of Transportation's Drive Ohio initiative. Additionally, we are partnering with the City of Athens, Columbus Yellow Cab, and other regional clean cities coalitions from West Virginia, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. We also receive funding through the Joyce Foundation, and the Buckeye Hills Regional Council serves as a partner as well. So to focus in on the project areas included in the roadmap, our EV shuttle pilot is sort of project area number 1. So working with Hocking-Athens Perry Community Actions, Athens Public Transit Service, we're conducting a pilot to gather data from the current fleet of combustion engine vehicles that are servicing the greater Athens city area. We're going to be deploying a battery electric shuttle bus, which will run on the current service routes. We'll kind of compare the benefit of, or the difference between a shuttle bus that's running on conventional fuel versus an electric vehicle shuttle bus. Also with the City of Athens, we've partnered to install a fast charge station. This is a DC fast charge station, which will be servicing not only the electric shuttle bus, but it is a publicly available charging site at the Athens Community Center. And this is one of only 5 public DC fast chargers in a 32 county region. And so that's a big step forward for this area. We're also going to be looking at fleet analysis and planning to support additional electrification of transit fleets in the region. Our second area of focus is on studying how autonomous vehicles operate in a rural environment. For this study, the Transportation Research Center is deploying a Tesla Model 3 equipped with Tesla's Navigate and Autopilot feature. And they're taking this on a rural route during all 4 seasons to determine how the vehicle performs in different road environments. So it's about a 28-mile test route, and in its cycle, it's really looking at how the infrastructure interacts with the vehicle. The results of that testing is going to help inform state and local government infrastructure strategies so that autonomous vehicles can have better performance and safer performance in a rural environment. We're also looking at how transportation service providers can really benefit from understanding kind of the rural environment and how making transitions to an electric fleet is really useful, and how we can plan for future transitions to an electrified fleet. We're working with the Clean Fuels Ohio's team to develop an electrification report, and we hope that that's going to better inform the transportation service providers in rural areas. Beyond that, we're working to learn more about how individual motorists, these are those who are just driving personal vehicles around rural places, how transitioning to electric or autonomous vehicles what impacts there may be on that in a rural environment. So we're using Bureau of Motor Vehicles analyses to understand what vehicles are being deployed in the area, and how dealers and others who are really trying to increase adoption of electric vehicles in rural places can better meet that need. We also work with Drive Electric Ohio, which is a statewide series of chapters that do electric vehicle promotion and really help folks understand what it's like to get behind the wheel of an electric vehicle. So conducting ride and drives and really doing some surveying and learning more about people's interests. Beyond that, this project is really trying to educate our industry leaders and policymakers around these these needs. What more do we need to know so that we can really adopt new technologies, build out the right infrastructure in rural places? So the Appalachian Clean Transportation Forum first took place November 17th and 18th. We're going to be doing sort of a different spin on it here in June. We're going to have a series of conversations sort of pre-recorded with some industry experts from around the country to really kind of highlight some critical topic areas. And so that will be, those conversations will air during Green Energy Ohio's EV Tour, which takes place June 7th through 11th. So we're looking forward to that. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak about the project. I really hope that if you have any questions or thoughts about this project, we really would love to hear from you. My email information is right here. And thanks.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was a great presentation, and I think I really applaud Rural Action for taking this on. Access to transportation in rural areas is very critical. It's very different than what works in urban areas. I'm also excited to see the initiative of how autonomous vehicles would work in rural areas when our rural roads can be anything from asphalt to chip seal to gravel, and lack of pavement markings. Sometimes snow removal may not be the best during the winter as well, just because of staffing issues. So I was wondering, while we're waiting for any questions in the chat, what have you learned so far about the autonomous vehicle shuttle, and what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in the rural areas?
Sure. Well, it was quite fascinating. The Transportation Research Center's first iteration on the rural route did find some unusual intersections in the city of Athens that caused the Tesla vehicle to really get confused. And we watched some of the kind of playback video and some simulations of that intersection to sort of understand why the vehicle seemed confused. It does rely on sensors to determine its, series of moves. And at one particular intersection in the city of Athens, the lane across from the intersection was offset from what the vehicle thought was a straightforward direct path. And with that offset, plus parked cars on the side, the vehicle got very confused, could not maintain sort of the full autonomous driving. And when it is in that situation, it always kicks it back to the driver to take control. So that's an obvious example of how the infrastructure, the road itself, could be better designed, whether that's with new lane markings, better signage that kind of speaks to the vehicle that they can understand. Those are improvements that can be made to improve the performance.
We all know about the lack of reliable high-speed broadband in our region. Are you seeing any issues related to having connectivity of the vehicle with any type of broadband that may be needed for control?
I think that the bigger challenge when it comes to broadband and electrification of the region and bringing electric vehicles to the region is with the charging station infrastructure. Okay. So in rural places where there's not good cell service or there may not be a cable connection, a networked charging station that requires you to use your smartphone to activate the device to charge your vehicle is oftentimes a really, is not possible in a rural place. So broadband is a necessary step to make those outer locations of electric vehicle stations possible.
Great. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but I do have one last question. Are you seeing an increased demand for EV stations? I know in the Omega region, just north of Buckeye Hills, the Guernsey County CDC and the Cambridge Main Street, as well as the Columbiana County Port Authority have all installed EV charging stations. So I didn't know if you're seeing an increased demand or, kind of public nonprofits implementing any EV stations.
Certainly, I think demand's absolutely growing, and publicly available charging is, also increasing in Southeast Ohio. Some of the more notable sites would include some of the libraries in the region. Marietta and their Armory station or Downtown Armory has a publicly available charging station, and to some extent, private businesses have also been taking the lead to install level 2 charging stations. There more needs to be done, and really funding is a critical piece to that. But there is definitely a demand, and I think there's an earnest effort to really build out that infrastructure so that it's possible for electric vehicle drivers to cross through these rural places.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. This has been a fascinating presentation. I look forward to seeing the results once the study is completed, but I think it's going to be beneficial for all of rural Ohio and the rest of the nation, actually. So this is pretty exciting. I don't see any other additional questions in the chat. So I wanted to remind folks that the next session will be starting shortly on site development, and you'll just need to close out of this session and return to the main event. So thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Stephen. Great projects that you guys have presented on.